For 8 years, my son said he was sick, and I sent him $400 a month for treatment. But when I came to visit him, his neighbor said, "What treatment? Your son is completely healthy." When I found out the truth, Good day, dear listeners. It's Louisa again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. I spent 37 years teaching third grade at Lincoln Elementary. Every morning, I'd wake up at 6, make my coffee, and watch the sunrise over my little garden in Portland, Oregon. Life was simple, predictable, and peaceful. My husband, Robert, passed away 5 years ago, leaving me the house and enough savings to live comfortably. My son, David, moved to Denver after college, started a business, got married to Ashley. We talked every Sunday, like clockwork. Then, 8 months ago, everything changed. "Mom, I need to tell you something." David's voice cracked over the phone that Tuesday evening. "I didn't want to worry you, but I've been diagnosed with a chronic kidney condition. The doctors say I need regular treatments, special medications. Insurance doesn't cover everything." My heart stopped. My only child, sick? How could this be happening? What kind of condition? Have you seen specialists? I fired questions at him, my teacher voice taking over, needing facts, details, answers. "Mom, please, it's complicated. The treatments are expensive, about $400 a month out of pocket. I've been trying to handle it myself, but..." He paused, and I heard what sounded like a sob. "I'm struggling, Mom. Ashley's parents can't help, and I hate asking you, but I don't know what else to do. $400. I made that decision in 30 seconds. What kind of mother would I be if I let my son suffer when I could help? "You'll have the money by Friday," I said firmly. "And David?" "You should have told me sooner. For the next 8 months, I sent him money religiously. Every first of the month, $400 wired to his account. I cut back on groceries, canceled my book club membership, stopped going out for lunch with my retired teacher friends. Small sacrifices. My son needed me. But the phone calls started changing. David always sounded fine, energetic, even cheerful. When I asked about his treatments, his answers became vague. "Oh, you know, the usual. Doctor says I'm responding well." "What medications are you on exactly?" It's got a complicated name. I can never remember how to pronounce it." "Shouldn't a person taking medication know its name?" The thought nagged at me, small but persistent, like a pebble in my shoe. Then came the Facebook post. Ashley, my daughter-in-law, had posted photos from what looked like an expensive restaurant. David was there, grinning, holding up a glass of wine. The caption read, "Date night at the Capitol Grill, because we deserve to treat ourselves." My hands trembled as I zoomed in on the photo. My son looked healthy. More than healthy. He looked radiant. His face had filled out, his skin glowed. This was a man dying from a kidney condition? I called my friend Patricia, a retired nurse who'd worked in nephrology for 20 years. "Patricia, if someone has a chronic kidney condition requiring $400 a month in treatments, what would they look like?" Her answer chilled me. "Margaret, they'd look tired, pale, probably losing weight." "Why are you asking?" That night, I made a decision. I booked a flight to Denver. David didn't know I was coming. I told him I'd be visiting my college friend in Seattle that week. A small lie, but I needed the truth more than I needed to be honest. The plane touched down on a Wednesday morning. I rented a car and drove to David's neighborhood, a beautiful suburban development with manicured lawns and 2-car garages. Much nicer than I'd expected. How was he affording this if he was struggling with medical bills? I parked across the street from his house, feeling ridiculous. What was I doing? Spying on my own son? But something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. The same instinct that had helped me spot troubled students before they failed. David's neighbor, an older man watering his roses, noticed me sitting in the car. He walked over, friendly smile on his weathered face. "Can I help you? You look lost." "I'm David Morrison's mother," I said. "I'm here to surprise him." The man's face lit up. "Oh, David, great guy. Always sees him at the gym, full of energy. You must be so proud." "His treatments don't slow him down?" I asked carefully. The man looked confused. "Treatments? What treatments? Your son's completely healthy. I've never seen a more fit 35-year-old. He and Ashley just got back from Cabo last month." The world tilted. The roses blurred. My mouth went dry. "Cabo?" I whispered. "What treatment?" The neighbor's words echoed in my mind. "Your son is completely healthy." And suddenly, I knew. 8 months. $3,200. All of it. A lie? I drove back to my hotel in a daze. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The neighbor's words kept replaying. Completely healthy. Just got back from Cabo. Full of energy. Cabo. Mexico. Beach vacation. While I'd been eating generic cereal and skipping my blood pressure medication to save money. Inside my hotel room, I pulled out my checkbook and bank statements. I'd brought them to Denver thinking I might need to discuss David's medical expenses, maybe help him find better insurance. Now they served a different purpose. 8 months. $400 per month. $3,200 total. But that was just the direct transfers. There was also the $500 I'd sent for emergency lab work in June, the $300 for specialist consultation in August, the $200 for prescription adjustments in September. $4,000. Maybe more. I sat on the hotel bed, my entire body shaking. This wasn't just about money. This was my son, the boy I'd rocked to sleep, helped with homework, put through college. The man I'd comforted when his father died, celebrated with when he got married. That David wouldn't do this to me. But apparently, this David would. My phone buzzed. A text from David. "Hey, Mom, hope you're having fun in Seattle. Love you. Love you." The words made me feel sick. I needed proof. Real proof. The neighbor's comment wasn't enough. David could explain that away somehow. I needed documentation, evidence, something concrete that couldn't be dismissed or rationalized. I opened my laptop and created a new document. David, investigation. The word felt harsh, cold, but accurate. What did I know for certain? No visible signs of illness. Expensive lifestyle, nice house, vacations, restaurant dinners, vague answers about treatments and medications. Neighbor confirmed no health issues. What did I need to find out? Doctor's name and office, medical records. Bank statements showing where my money actually went. Proof he wasn't sick, but how? I was a retired school teacher, not a detective. I couldn't break into his house or hack his email. I needed to be smart about this. Then it hit me. David had told me early on that his doctor was Dr. Stevens at Denver Medical Center. I'd written it down because I was worried, wanted to know who was caring for my son. I grabbed my phone and searched for Denver Medical Center. The website listed their departments: emergency, oncology, cardiology, nephrology. I clicked on nephrology and scrolled through the physician directory. No, Dr. Stevens, I checked every department. Orthopedics, internal medicine, even pediatrics, just to be thorough. No Dr. Stevens anywhere. My hands started shaking again, but this time with something else. Not just hurt. Anger. Cold, clarifying anger. I called Denver Medical Center's main line. "Hello, I'm trying to reach Dr. Stevens in your nephrology department," I said, keeping my voice steady. "1 moment, please." A pause. I'm sorry, ma'am, we don't have a Dr. Stevens in nephrology. We have Dr. Stevenson in cardiology or Dr. Stewart in. No, thank you. I hung up. There it was. The first real proof. Not speculation, not suspicion. A verifiable lie. I spent the next 2 hours calling every major hospital and medical center in Denver. No Dr. Stevens treating kidney conditions. Some places had doctors with similar names, but none matching what David had told me. As the sun set over Denver, I made myself a cup of tea from the hotel room's coffee maker and sat by the window. Below, people walked their dogs, couples held hands, life continued normally. But my life had fractured. I thought about confronting David immediately, showing up at his door demanding answers. But what would that accomplish? He'd deny it, make excuses, probably come up with some elaborate explanation, maybe claim I'd misunderstood the doctor's name, gaslight me into doubting my own discovery. Number one, I needed more than one discrepancy. I needed a pattern of lies so clear he couldn't talk his way out of it. I needed a plan. Opening my laptop again, I created a new strategy. First, I'd continue sending the money. Let David think everything was normal. Meanwhile, I'd gather evidence quietly. Medical records requests, maybe hire a private investigator, document everything. Then, when I had irrefutable proof, I'd act. Not emotionally, not impulsively. Carefully and decisively. My son had made me into a fool for 8 months. He'd exploited my love, my fear of losing him, my maternal instinct to protect him at any cost. But the fool was waking up, and she was going to get her answers. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Martin Fletcher had handled Robert's estate and our wills. He was 70, semi-retired, and sharp as ever. When I explained the situation, carefully, methodically, without emotion, he was quiet for a long moment. "Margaret, I'm sorry. This must be devastating," he finally said. "What exactly are you asking me to do? I need to know if I have legal recourse. Can I request his medical records? Can I demand the money back? What are my options?" Martin sighed. "Medical records are protected by HIPAA. You can't access them without his consent unless you have power of attorney, which you don't. As for the money, it was a gift. Legally, gifts aren't recoverable unless you can prove fraud. He lied about being sick. That's fraud. Potentially. But you'd need to prove he intentionally deceived you, which means evidence. Do you have documentation of his claims? Text messages, emails, anything in writing?" I thought about our phone conversations. Everything had been verbal. Convenient. Some texts. Nothing explicit about the diagnosis, just references to treatments and feeling better. "That's not enough," Martin said gently. "Margaret, my advice, try to get him to put something in writing. Email him asking specific questions about his condition. Save everything. If he responds with specifics, that could help." After we hung up, I composed an email to David. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. How to phrase this without arousing suspicion? Subject: checking in. "Hi, sweetheart. I've been thinking about your health a lot lately. I realized I don't know much about your specific condition. What's the official diagnosis? What's your doctor's full name and office address? I'd like to send a card or something to thank them for taking care of my boy. Also, what medications are you taking? I want to research them, understand what you're going through. Love, Mom." I hit send before I could overthink it. Meanwhile, I hired a private investigator. His name was Thomas Reed, a former police detective who now ran a small agency in Denver. We met at a coffee shop near my hotel. "I need you to follow my son," I said, the words tasting bitter. "Document his activities, see if he goes to any medical appointments, confirm whether he's actually sick." Thomas was in his 50s, with kind eyes that had probably seen too much. "Mrs. Morrison, I have to ask, are you prepared for what I might find?" I already know what you'll find, I said quietly. I need proof. He nodded. I'll need photos, his address, work schedule if you have it. I provided everything. David worked from home as a consultant, something vague with tech companies. His schedule was flexible, which meant Thomas would have plenty of opportunities to observe him. Give me a week, Thomas said. That evening, David called me. My heart jumped when I saw his name on my phone screen. Hey, Mom, got your email. Why all the questions? His tone was light, but I detected something underneath. Caution? Suspicion? I just want to understand what you're going through, honey. Is that so strange? No, it's just, you've never asked for details before. Well, I'm asking now, what's your doctor's full name? A pause. Too long. Dr. Stevens, I told you that. Stevens with a V or Stevens with a PH? Another pause. With a V. Why? And his office address? Mom, why are you interrogating me? Now he sounded defensive. What's going on? I took a breath. Stay calm. Don't let him know. David, I'm your mother. I've been sending you money for 8 months for medical treatments. I think I'm entitled to know basic information about your health care, don't you? This is weird, Mom. You're being weird. Wanting to know my sick son's doctor's name is weird? No, but he trailed off. Look, I'll email you the details, okay? I'm just busy right now. When? Soon. Tomorrow. I promise. He hung up quickly. Too quickly. I stared at my phone. He knew something was wrong. I'd tipped my hand too early. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a text. Not from David, from Ashley. Hi, Margaret. David mentioned you're asking about his treatments. Just want you to know he's doing great. Doctor says his numbers are really improving. Try not to worry so much. I read it 3 times. Ashley had never texted me before. Never. We were polite at holidays, exchanged pleasantries, but we weren't close. Her sudden involvement meant one thing. David had told her about my questions, and they were coordinating a response. They knew I was suspicious. The battle lines were being drawn, and I'd just fired the first shot. There was no going back now. Either I'd prove my son was a liar, or I'd destroy our relationship over a misunderstanding. But deep in my gut, I knew there was no misunderstanding. The next day, David's promised email never came. Thomas Reed called me on day 5 of his surveillance. Mrs. Morrison, I have something you need to see. We met at the same coffee shop. He slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were photographs, time-stamped and dated. David at a gym, lifting weights. David and Ashley at a wine bar. David loading groceries into his car. Expensive brands, cases of craft beer. David playing tennis at what looked like a country club. Not a single photo of him at a hospital, doctor's office, or pharmacy. I followed him for 5 days, Thomas said. His routine is consistent. Gym at 8 a.m., works from home until noon, lunch meetings at upscale restaurants, more work, then evening activities. Yesterday, he played basketball with friends for 2 hours. Mrs. Morrison, I've surveilled a lot of people. This man is not sick. The photos felt heavy in my hands. Evidence. Real, irrefutable evidence. There's more, Thomas continued. I have a contact who ran a background check. Your son's business is doing very well. He's pulling in around $120,000 a year, maybe more. The house is expensive, but he can afford it. Then why take my money? My voice cracked. That, Thomas said gently, is a question only he can answer. I paid Thomas his fee and returned to my hotel. I had proof now. The question was, what to do with it? That night, I composed another email. This time, I didn't hold back. David, I'm still waiting for your doctor's information. It's been 3 days since you promised to send it. I think we both know why you haven't. I'm in Denver. I've been here for a week. I came to visit you to see how you were really doing. But I didn't knock on your door because I wanted to understand the truth first. I know Dr. Stevens doesn't exist. I know you're not sick. I know about Cabo, the country club, the expensive dinners. You have 24 hours to call me and explain. If I don't hear from you, I'm taking legal action to recover every penny. Your mother. I hit send at 9:47 p.m. At 10:03 p.m., my phone exploded. David called. I didn't answer. He called again and again. Text messages flooded in. Mom, please answer. I can explain everything. You don't understand. Please don't do anything crazy. Then Ashley started calling. I blocked both their numbers and went to bed. The next morning, there was a knock on my hotel room door. I looked through the peephole. David and Ashley stood in the hallway. My heart pounded. How did they find me? Then I remembered. I'd rented the car with my credit card. They probably called every hotel near their house until they found me. I opened the door but kept the chain lock in place. Mom, please, we need to talk, David said. His eyes were red. Had he been crying? I agree. Talk. Not like this. Let us in. No. Say whatever you need to say from there. Ashley stepped forward. Margaret, you're being unreasonable. David has been sick. Maybe you misunderstood. There is no Dr. Stevens, I said coldly. There is no kidney condition. I hired an investigator. I have photographs of David playing tennis and basketball. So let's skip the part where you lie to my face and get to the truth. David's face crumbled. Mom, It started as... The truth, David. He looked at Ashley, then back at me. We were behind on the house payments. Just 1 month, but it was going to snowball. My business had a dry spell. I panicked. I thought I'd ask you for help just once, pay you back quickly, but then you realized I'd keep sending money if you kept lying, I finished. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain to me how stealing from your mother for 8 months while vacationing in Mexico and playing at country clubs isn't exactly like that. Ashley's mask slipped. We didn't steal anything. You gave us that money willingly. Based on lies. You can't prove that, she snapped. You don't have anything in writing. It's your word against ours. There it was. The truth. Not remorse. Legal positioning. They'd thought this through. Get out, I said quietly. Mom? David reached for the door. Get out. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't come near me. I'm contacting my lawyer today. You'll be hearing from him. I shut the door and locked it, slid down to the floor and sat there, shaking. They hammered on the door for 10 more minutes, pleading, threatening, bargaining. I didn't move. Eventually, they left. I spent the next 3 days in that hotel room, ordering room service, talking to Martin, organizing my evidence. I didn't cry. I was beyond tears. I felt cold, calculated, focused. On the 4th day, I flew home to Portland. I needed space, time, perspective, but this wasn't over. Not even close. Back in Portland, I tried to return to my normal life. I watered my garden, went to the grocery store, attended my book club for the first time in months. But everything felt different. Hollow. Like I was moving through a play, acting out the part of Margaret Morrison, retired teacher, when really I was someone else now. Someone whose son had betrayed her. The call started 2 days after I got home. David's number appeared on my phone, but I'd blocked it. Then came calls from unknown numbers. I made the mistake of answering one. Mom, it's me. Please don't hang up. David's voice was thick with emotion. I've been going crazy. We need to talk. Please. I hung up. An hour later, another unknown number. This time I let it go to voicemail. Mrs. Morrison, this is Reverend Paul Hendricks from Grace Community Church in Denver. David and Ashley are members of our congregation. They've asked me to reach out to you. They're devastated by this misunderstanding. David tells me he's been struggling with depression and perhaps that's clouded his judgment. Would you be willing to speak with me about mediation? Family is so precious. I'm sure we can find a way to heal this rift. Misunderstanding, depression. Heal this rift. The manipulation was breathtaking. I deleted the message. That evening, flowers arrived. 24 roses with a card. Mom, I'm so sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. David. I threw them in the trash. The next day, a letter arrived via FedEx. Expensive envelope. Ashley's handwriting. Dear Margaret, I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but I want you to understand something about David that perhaps you don't know. He's been struggling with anxiety and depression for years. He was ashamed to tell you. When the business hit a rough patch, he spiraled. He made a terrible decision born out of desperation and shame. But he's your son, your only child. Robert wouldn't want this family torn apart over money. David is willing to pay you back every penny with interest. We can set up a payment plan. Please, can't we find a way past this? Think about holidays, birthdays, grandchildren someday. Do you really want to throw all of that away? With love and hope, Ashley, grandchildren. She'd actually played the grandchildren card. I read the letter 3 times, then filed it with my other evidence. That last paragraph was important. An admission that they owed me money, that they'd done something wrong. Martin would want to see this. But their strategy was becoming clear. First, deny everything. When that failed, minimize and reframe. It wasn't fraud. It was a mistake caused by depression. It wasn't theft. It was a family misunderstanding that could be resolved with forgiveness. And I felt myself wavering, not because I believed them, but because the loneliness was crushing. I'd spent my whole adult life building a family. Robert was gone. David was all I had left. Was I really going to throw that away? I called Patricia, my nurse friend. Tell me I'm not crazy, I said. You're not crazy. You're hurt. There's a difference. They're saying he was depressed, that it was a cry for help. Was faking cancer for 8 months a cry for help? Or was it calculated theft from a woman who loved him unconditionally? Patricia's voice was firm. Margaret, I've known you for 30 years. You're the kindest person I've ever met. But kindness doesn't mean letting people destroy you. He's my son. I know. And that makes this hurt worse. But honey, real love doesn't manipulate. Real love doesn't exploit. What David did to you, that's not love. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen for a long time. The house was too quiet. I missed Robert. He would have known what to do. He always did. Then I remembered something. My book club. 8 women, retired teachers and nurses and librarians who'd been meeting monthly for 15 years. I'd missed so many meetings because I was saving money for David's fake treatments. I picked up my phone and texted the group chat. I need help. Can we meet? 6 hours later, we sat in Linda's living room. I told them everything. Showed them the photos, the emails, the letters, laid it all out. When I finished, there was silence. Then Carol, who'd taught high school for 40 years and raised 4 kids, spoke. That son of a bitch. Everyone nodded. You're going to fight this, Linda said. It wasn't a question. And we're going to help you. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel alone. These women, my friends, my tribe, they saw me. They believed me. They were on my side. The cold, hollow feeling started to recede. In its place, resolve. David and Ashley wanted to play the long game? Fine. I had an army now. 3 weeks passed. I focused on routine, garden, book club, meeting with Martin to discuss legal options. The problem was clear. Without explicit written admission of fraud, Recovering the money would be difficult. Ashley's letter helped, but wasn't enough. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, my doorbell rang. David and Ashley stood on my porch. They'd flown to Portland without warning. "Mom, please, just hear us out," David said. He looked terrible, thinner, with dark circles under his eyes. Part of me wanted to pull him into a hug. The mother in me, the one who'd kissed scraped knees and driven him to baseball practice. But I'd learned my lesson about trusting my maternal instincts with this man. "You have 5 minutes," I said, not opening the screen door. They stepped inside when I unlocked it. Ashley carried a white bakery box. "I brought your favorite, lemon scones from that place you like." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The scones sat on my coffee table, ignored. "We've been doing a lot of soul searching," David began. "We went to therapy. I've been diagnosed with depression and anxiety. The therapist says I have abandonment issues from losing Dad. That's why I made those choices. I was self-sabotaging." Psychology buzzwords, a shield of therapeutic language to deflect responsibility. "Your therapist told you that faking cancer was self-sabotaging?" I asked dryly. "It wasn't cancer, Mom. It was a kidney thing, and I didn't exactly say—" "Stop." I held up my hand. "I don't want to hear another lie. Say what you came to say." Ashley jumped in. "We want to make this right. We've worked out a payment plan. We can give you $500 a month until the debt is paid." $4,000 at $500 a month. That's 8 months. I did the math quickly. And what about interest? What about the emotional damage, the breach of trust? "We can't put a price on that," David said softly. "But we can try to rebuild. If you'd just give us a chance." "In exchange for what?" I asked. "What do you want from me?" They exchanged a glance. There it was, the real agenda. "We need you to sign something," Ashley said, pulling papers from her purse. "A statement saying this was a family loan, not fraud, that we're paying it back as agreed. Our lawyer says it protects both of us." "Your lawyer." I took the papers, scanned them quickly. The document was worse than she'd described. It released them from any legal liability, acknowledged the money as a voluntary family loan with no documentation, and included a clause preventing me from discussing the matter with third parties. A gag order. They wanted to buy my silence for $500 a month. "You think I'm stupid," I said quietly. "No, Mom, You think I'm a senile old woman who'll sign anything you put in front of her if you bring scones and talk about therapy." "That's not fair," Ashley said, her voice hardening. "We're trying to make this right. We're offering to pay you back. Most people would be grateful." "Grateful?" I stood up. "You stole from me. You lied about my son dying to manipulate money out of me. And now you want me to be grateful that you're offering to return a fraction of what you took?" "We're offering to pay back everything." David stood too. "Every penny. What more do you want?" "I want you to admit what you did, in writing, to a lawyer. I want a real repayment plan with legal consequences if you default. I want you to acknowledge that this was fraud, not a loan." "We can't do that," Ashley said. "If there's a written admission of fraud, you could press charges. We could go to jail." "Exactly." The mask fully dropped from Ashley's face. "You're really going to destroy your own son? Send him to prison? For what? Money you don't even need?" "This isn't about money. It never was." "Then what is it about?" David demanded. "Revenge? Punishment? Making me suffer?" "Accountability," I said. "Something you've apparently never learned." Ashley grabbed her purse. "You're making a huge mistake. You're old, Margaret. You're alone. You need family. What happens when you get sick? When you need help? Who's going to be there?" The threat was clear: comply or be abandoned. I have friends. I have a community. I don't need people who only pretend to love me when it's convenient. We do love you, David's voice broke. I'm your son. Doesn't that mean anything? It did, I said softly. Once. Now please leave. They didn't move. Leave, or I'm calling the police. Ashley grabbed David's arm. Come on, she's not worth it. We tried. As they walked to the door, Ashley turned back. Her face was cold, calculating. You'll regret this. We'll make sure everyone knows what kind of mother you are. Cruel, unforgiving, heartless. Tell them, I said. I'll tell them the truth. The door slammed. Through the window, I watched them get into their rental car. They sat there for 10 minutes, arguing. I could see Ashley gesticulating, David's head in his hands. Then they drove away. My hands were shaking. My heart pounded. But underneath the fear, something else burned. Determination. They'd shown their true faces. No more pretending. No more manipulation disguised as reconciliation. Now I knew exactly who I was dealing with. Martin called me 2 days later. Margaret, David's lawyer, contacted me. They're threatening to sue you for defamation and elder abuse. They claim you're mentally unstable and making false accusations. I laughed. Actually, laughed. Elder abuse? I'm the victim here. I know, and I told them as much. But here's the interesting part. They're desperate. People don't threaten lawsuits they can't win unless they're trying to scare you into silence. They're afraid. Afraid of what? Of what you might do next. Margaret, I think it's time we went on offense. Martin had a plan. We'd file a civil suit for fraud and emotional distress. It wouldn't be easy to win, but the discovery process would force David and Ashley to provide financial records, communications, everything. Their lies would be exposed in court documents. But there's another option, Martin said. Have you considered going public? What do you mean? Tell your story. Local news loves this kind of thing. Retired teacher scammed by son. The public pressure alone might force them to settle, and it creates a paper trail, documentation of their fraud that can't be erased. Going public, making this mess visible to everyone. It felt terrifying and liberating at the same time. Let me think about it, I said. I didn't have to think long. That evening, David posted on Facebook. It breaks my heart to share this, but my mother is struggling with some serious issues. She's become paranoid and accusatory, making wild claims about me and Ashley. We love her so much, and we're trying to get her help, but she's pushing us away. If you're a praying person, please keep our family in your thoughts during this difficult time. The post had 73 likes. Comments poured in. So sorry, David. Aging is hard. My mom went through something similar. Dementia? You're such a good son for trying to help her. He was building a narrative, making me the villain, the crazy old woman, the unreliable narrator. I screenshot everything and sent it to Martin. Then I called Amanda Rodriguez, a reporter I knew from my teaching days. She'd covered education for the Portland Tribune and now worked for a local TV station. Amanda, I have a story for you. We met the next day. I showed her everything: bank statements, private investigator photos, emails, the Facebook post. I explained it all calmly, clearly, without emotion. Amanda's eyes widened as she reviewed the evidence. Margaret, wow. This is legitimate fraud. You know, if we run this, it's going public. There's no taking it back. I know. Your son will see it. Everyone will. Good. The story aired 3 days later. Local retiree alleges. Son faked illness to steal thousands. Amanda handled it perfectly, presented the facts, showed my evidence, included a brief statement from David's lawyer. Our client denies these allegations and maintains this was a family misunderstanding. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My phone exploded with messages from former colleagues, friends, even former students. The Facebook comments on the news station's post were brutal toward David. "This is disgusting. She's his mother. I hope he goes to jail." Imagine exploiting your own parent like this. David's earlier post aged like milk. People were commenting on it now. "Is this the wild accusation you were talking about? Because it looks pretty real. You made your mother out to be crazy when you were the liar." He deleted it within hours, but screenshots lived forever. 2 days after the story aired, Martin called again. "They want to settle." My heart skipped. "What are their terms?" "Full repayment, $4,500, including interest. Payment in full within 30 days. Written apology. And they want you to issue a public statement saying the matter has been resolved." No statement. They pay, they apologize in writing, and then we never speak again. Martin negotiated. By evening, we had an agreement. David and Ashley would pay $4,500 within 15 days. They would provide a written, signed apology admitting to misrepresenting David's health situation and accepting financial help under false pretenses. In exchange, I wouldn't pursue criminal charges. The check arrived via certified mail 12 days later. The apology came with it. One paragraph, cold and minimal, but legally binding. We acknowledge that we misrepresented David's health condition to Margaret Morrison and accepted financial assistance based on those misrepresentations. We deeply regret the pain this caused and take full responsibility for our actions. Signed by both of them. Notarized. I deposited the check, filed the apology with Martin, and then I sat in my kitchen staring at the documents. It was over. I'd won. So why didn't I feel victorious? The aftermath unfolded over the following months, and I watched from a distance as David and Ashley's carefully constructed life began to crumble. The first domino fell when David's business partners saw the news story. Within a week, his 2 largest clients terminated their contracts. One sent a terse email that David accidentally forwarded to me. He was trying to garner sympathy from distant relatives. "We cannot maintain a business relationship with someone whose integrity has been publicly questioned. Effective immediately, we are ending our consulting agreement." His income dropped by 60% overnight. The second client didn't even bother with an explanation. Just a one-line termination notice. David had built his consulting business on reputation and trust. Now, both were destroyed. The tech industry, despite its size, operates like a small town. Word spreads fast. Within 2 months, 3 potential clients who'd been in negotiations backed out. One was honest enough to admit why. "We Googled you. We can't take that risk." The second domino was social. Ashley had been very active in their church and social circles. She'd positioned herself as the perfect wife, the future perfect mother. But the court documents, now public record, told a different story. Her own words from emails and texts were quoted in follow-up news articles. The country club membership lapsed. They couldn't afford to renew it. But even if they could have, the social damage was irreparable. Ashley had bragged to her friends about their lifestyle, posted constantly about their blessed life. Now everyone knew that Blessing had been funded by defrauding an elderly widow. The whispers started immediately. Women who'd had coffee with Ashley every week suddenly stopped returning her calls. The book club she'd hosted monthly disbanded. She was removed from the planning committee for the church fundraiser, quietly, without explanation. But the message was clear. Then came the third domino, the one I hadn't anticipated, but found myself grimly satisfied to witness. Ashley's parents finally learned the full truth. They'd been told I was mentally unstable and making trouble. But when a family friend sent them the news clip, they demanded answers. David and Ashley tried to maintain the lie, but the written apology was public record. Ashley's father, a retired attorney, was apparently furious. According to Patricia, who had a friend whose daughter attended the same church, he confronted them publicly after a Sunday service. The fight was loud enough that the pastor had to intervene. Her parents cut them off financially. They'd been helping with the mortgage. Within 3 months of the settlement, David and Ashley put their house on the market. They couldn't afford it anymore. The real estate market had softened, and they had to sell for less than they'd hoped. After the mortgage was paid off, they walked away with almost nothing. But the final, most satisfying domino came from an unexpected place. I received a call from the IRS agent Jennifer Wu explained that during a routine audit triggered by discrepancies in David's business filings, they'd discovered he'd been reporting my gifts as business loans to avoid paying taxes on them. Mrs. Morrison, your settlement and the publicity around it flagged our attention. We're investigating Mr. Morrison for tax fraud. We may need your testimony. I provided everything they asked for. The IRS works slowly, but they work thoroughly. David didn't go to jail for stealing from me. Our civil settlement precluded criminal charges for that. But tax fraud? That was a different matter entirely. The federal government doesn't forgive, doesn't forget, and doesn't negotiate. He ended up owing nearly $18,000 in back taxes, penalties, and interest. He had to set up a payment plan that would follow him for years. His credit score plummeted. The IRS placed a lien on any future assets. He couldn't even finance a decent car. I learned later that the stress caused David to develop actual health problems: high blood pressure, anxiety attacks, insomnia. The irony wasn't lost on me. He'd faked illness to steal money, and now the consequences of that theft had made him genuinely sick. Meanwhile, my life transformed in unexpected ways. The news story led to an invitation to speak at a seniors advocacy group about financial exploitation. Then another invitation, and another. I found myself becoming a voice for elderly victims of family fraud, something I'd never imagined. Your story matters, the director of Elder Rights Alliance told me. So many people go through this in silence. They're ashamed. They think it's their fault. You speaking out gives them permission to seek help. My book club friends became my constant support system. We started meeting weekly instead of monthly. Linda helped me redecorate my house. New chapter, new energy, she declared. Carol taught me how to use social media better so I could control my own narrative. I started a small blog called Second Chapter about rebuilding life after betrayal. It resonated with more people than I expected. Within 6 months, I had 15,000 followers, other mothers, fathers, grandparents who'd been exploited by family members. The local community college asked me to teach a course on financial literacy for seniors. I said yes. 1 year after the settlement, I ran into David's former neighbor, the one who'd first told me the truth. He was in Portland visiting his daughter. Mrs. Morrison, I've been following your story. I'm so glad you got justice. Thank you for being honest with me that day. You changed everything. I felt terrible afterward, wondering if I'd caused trouble, but now... He smiled. You're helping so many people. That took real courage. Courage. I'd never thought of myself as courageous. I was just a woman who refused to be a victim. That evening, I sat in my garden as the sun set. My flowers were blooming, roses, lavender, daisies. I'd had time to tend them now. Time for myself. My phone buzzed. An email from a woman in Ohio. I just read your blog. My daughter has been doing something similar. I didn't know I could fight back. Thank you for showing me I can. I wrote back, offering resources, encouragement. This was my victory. Not the money, though I'd invested it wisely. Not David's punishment, though he'd certainly faced consequences. My victory was reclaiming my voice, my dignity, my right to demand honesty and respect. David had tried to make me small. Instead, he'd made me powerful. 2 years after the settlement, I stood in my new condo overlooking the Willamette River. I'd sold my old house. Too many memories, too much space for one person. This place was modern, bright, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a balcony where I drank my morning coffee while watching boats drift by. The sale of my old house had been bittersweet. I'd lived there for 35 years, raised David in those rooms, buried Robert from that living room. But keeping it felt like clinging to a past that no longer served me. The realtor was surprised when I accepted the first offer, even though it was slightly below asking price. "Are you sure?" she'd asked. "We could probably get more if we wait." "I'm sure," I'd told her. "I'm ready to move forward." The condo was everything I needed. One bedroom, one office, an open-concept living area perfect for hosting my book club. No yard to maintain, but a rooftop garden where residents could plant vegetables and flowers. I had 3 tomato plants and a small herb garden up there. On summer evenings, I'd sit among the basil and rosemary, reading or writing, feeling more content than I had in decades. My Second Chapter blog had evolved into a nonprofit organization. Second Chapter Foundation provided resources, legal referrals, and support groups for elderly victims of financial exploitation. We'd helped over 300 families in 18 months. I'd hired 2 part-time staff members and was working with legislators on a bill to strengthen protections for seniors. The foundation office was small but professional, 2 rooms in a shared workspace downtown. My staff consisted of Jennifer, a retired paralegal who'd been scammed by her grandson, and Marcus, a social worker who specialized in elder advocacy. We met twice a week to review cases, strategize outreach, and plan events. I'd been featured in AARP magazine. NPR interviewed me for a segment on family fraud. A literary agent reached out about writing a book. "Your story could help millions," she said during our first phone call. "And not just the practical advice, the emotional journey, how you went from victim to advocate. That's powerful." I signed the contract last month. The advance was modest but meaningful, enough to fund the foundation for another year. I'd already started writing, getting up at 5 a.m. to work on chapters before my advocacy work began. The discipline of writing was cathartic, forcing me to process everything that had happened, to find meaning in the pain. My book club friends joked that I'd become famous, but really, I'd just become myself again. The woman Robert had loved, who'd taught 3rd graders to stand up to bullies, who believed in justice and fairness. "You're glowing," Patricia said at our weekly lunch at our favorite cafe. "I haven't seen you this happy in years, maybe ever." She was right. I was happy. Not because I'd destroyed my son. I'd given him every opportunity to make things right. But because I'd chosen myself, my dignity, my truth. Last month, I started dating. Harold was a retired engineer, 72, with kind eyes and a dry sense of humor. We met at a fundraiser for the foundation. He'd written a generous check, then stayed for my speech about financial exploitation. My sister went through something similar with her son, he'd told me afterward. "I wish she'd had your courage. She never fought back, died still sending him money." We'd gone for coffee, then dinner, then a concert. Nothing serious yet, but it was nice to have companionship, conversation, someone to see movies with. Harold made me laugh. After everything, I'd forgotten how good that felt. My life was full, rich, meaningful. Meanwhile, David and Ashley's situation continued to deteriorate. They'd moved to a small apartment in a cheaper suburb of Denver. Ashley had to get a job. She was working as an administrative assistant at a dental office, something she'd apparently considered beneath her before. David's consulting business never recovered. He took a corporate job at a mid-sized firm, the kind he'd always said he'd never do, working for someone else, with a boss and performance reviews and mandatory team-building exercises. Their social media presence, once full of carefully curated vacation photos and restaurant check-ins, had gone quiet. Occasionally, Ashley would post something bland, a sunset, a coffee cup, but the comments were sparse. Their friends had evaporated like morning dew. I learned all this not from stalking them, but from David's cousin Rachel, who reached out to apologize for not believing me initially. "I should have known," Rachel said, over coffee at a bakery near my condo. "David always had an entitled streak, even as a kid. I'm sorry I doubted you." Rachel and I had coffee monthly now. She kept me updated, not out of malice, but because she thought I deserved to know the consequences of their actions. She'd become a friend, someone who understood the complicated grief of losing family to their own choices. "Ashley's parents still won't speak to them," Rachel reported during our last meeting. "They missed Thanksgiving, Christmas, everything. Ashley's mom told me she feels like she doesn't even know who her daughter is anymore. She said, 'I raised her better than this.'" The IRS payment plan would follow David for another 6 years. Between that and their reduced income, they were living paycheck to paycheck. The very situation they'd tried to avoid by stealing from me. The house they'd been so proud of was gone. The country club membership gone. The expensive dinners and weekend getaways, all gone. "Ashley blames David entirely," Rachel said, lowering her voice even though we were alone. "I heard they're in marriage counseling, but it's not going well. She resents him for ruining their life. She tells people it was all his idea, that she didn't know how bad it was." I felt no satisfaction in their suffering, just a quiet sense of balance. They'd made choices. Choices had consequences. The universe had a way of correcting itself. But the most telling moment came 6 months ago. I received a letter, not from David, from Ashley's attorney. A different one. A divorce lawyer. "Dear Mrs. Morrison, I represent Ashley Morrison, who is filing for divorce from David Morrison. As part of the proceedings, she wishes to provide testimony regarding the fraud perpetrated against you. She believes you deserve to know the full extent of David's manipulation, including details she withheld during the original investigation. If you're interested in this information for any potential legal action, please contact my office." Ashley was turning on David completely, offering to testify against him to save herself, to rebuild her reputation by positioning herself as another victim of his manipulation. I filed the letter away and didn't respond. I'd already won. I didn't need to salt the earth. My foundation held its first annual gala last month. 200 people attended. We raised $80,000. Survivors shared their stories on stage. Legislators committed to supporting our protection bill. Local news covered the event. As I stood at the podium looking out at the crowd, Patricia, Linda, Carol, Harold, Rachel, my former students who'd become successful adults, reporters, advocates, survivors, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride, not in destroying my son, but in building something meaningful from the ashes of betrayal. I'd turned pain into purpose. That was the real victory.